Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Path of Exile 2 video here. Haven't uploaded in a little while, been on vacation, just got back recently and wanted to check out the updates to Path of Exile 2. PoE 1 got a new league, Secrets of the Atlas, and PoE 2 got a minor patch, it looks like, patch 0.2.1. So going to compare those, just kind of take a look at both. Starting to question what the point of Path of Exile 2 was, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. First off, if you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, really appreciate it. It helps me out. We hit 1,400 subscribers recently. Now we're going to go for 1,500. So let's go ahead and take a look at Path of Exile 1 here, Secrets of the Atlas. Tons of new content.
You can search 1,000 worlds and still never
So looks like a really good league. I'm,
Trust me,
not
I should know.
not totally sure if I'm going to play it myself, but I'm very tempted to do so.
I seek something.
Basically, they're bringing back Xana, and there's also like mercenaries in the game that you can hire, which is pretty cool, in my opinion. Some like D2 vibes there.
Memories.
You have to like challenge them to a duel and defeat them though in order to be able to hire them.
Made foul.
So there's several new pinnacle bosses.
These manifestations must be destroyed. Their threads must be eradicated. I must have answers. We must find
So that's
the
like Kid
originator.
Xana there.
We must save my sister.
The power is an illusion made real.
So they made King's March part of the core gameplay, so that's pretty cool.
Drink deep the waters of life.
You're either a client
So these are the mercenaries that you can hire.
just done.
There's a look at their gear, and they can apparently give you like alternate skill gems and other things. So we'll take a look at that here.
Authority is not promised to you here.
So here's all the new stuff in the game. This is like the new in-game storyline, and here we have a look at some of the new just content, new pinnacle bosses here. That's always awesome. Here's some of the new gear if you defeat the pinnacle bosses. So pretty interesting stuff. I just makes me kind of frustrated that PoE 2 is like lacking so much in just what made PoE 1 awesome. And so it's actually starting to make me kind of question like what was the point of Path of Exile 2? Here's a look at the mercenaries that you can get, that you can hire. I wish you could hover over the gear here. There is a couple screenshots of it though, so this is what that looks like for you to hire them. Here's another one. So I think you can equip them with gear, which is always cool because it just opens up like more possibilities for builds. They can give you an aura, which is pretty significant, and there's some altered gear that you can get from them. So here's a look at like a storm call of Tartus, as I'm assuming how you say it, spectral shield throw. Even the challenge armor looks better than most of the challenge armors. And then here we get a look at King's March, so that's pretty cool that it's there. They've reworked the betrayal mechanic to fight the mastermind there, so I think that's a good change because this is what you can get from it now. So I think that's a good, nice update for that mechanic in the game. And of course a new supporter pack and some quality of life changes here. So all in all, it looks like a really solid league. Probably more content than most leagues we get, and especially when it's the in-game map system, that's always huge. So let's take a look at what recently just came out for PoE 2. There's some new runes, which that's okay. There's some new in-game talismans, some soul cores, quote unquote mythic unique drop increase, which I'm not even really sure what those are, to be quite honest. I know it's just like some of the higher end uniques, but I really don't feel like a lot of the uniques in PoE 2 are in a usable state. There's a few that were really overtuned at launch, and then they got hit with some nerfs, but they're still probably the better uniques that are out there. And just some other changes here, nothing too significant. A couple balances to monsters and increase to the in-game maps. I'm just, if I was right now like to pick a game between if I wanted to play PoE 1 or PoE 2, I think I'm going to have to go with PoE 1. I'm not really sure, like I said, though, if I want to jump in and play like another PoE 1 league. I've played a lot of PoE 1, and I'm kind of like looking for something a little different. I want that little different flavor. I've played through the PoE 1 campaign so many times, and yeah, you can get through it pretty quickly and then start working on your build in the in-game system, but it's just, even with a little bit of new content, I just don't know. I just don't really feel the like draw for me to jump into it and play it, especially after playing like PoE 2 just with the nice graphics and the smoothness of the gameplay. It's like I want that new that newness, that freshness with the good mechanics. And I feel like PoE 2 is significantly missing on a lot of just the depth and the variety and the uniqueness of PoE 1 that made it such a great game. And maybe that will come as they continue to release more of the classes and the weapons and the abilities, but I'm just very concerned of how they've kind of painted themselves into a corner for PoE 2 with skills being locked and gated specifically behind weapons. The only way I can see it possibly being okay, and I just don't know if it would feel very good. I guess depending on how you combine your skills, like if you combine different weapons to different skills. The other thing I'm really unsure about too is like if you're dual wielding different types of weapons, what does that look like? Do you, if you have a like, let's say you're using Titan's grip and you have a two-handed axe and a two-handed sword, can you still use a two-handed sword ability and hit with both weapons, or a two-handed axe ability and hit with both weapons? Because if so, I could see that opening up some really cool and interesting combinations. Because a lot of the weapon skills for dual wielding in PoE 2, it's like hit with both weapons for 75% damage. So if you have two weapons that do similar amount of damage, you are getting somewhat of a damage increase when you factor out, like, if you take armor, etc., out of the equation, it's sort of 150% like damage versus 100% damage. So you're getting a 50% more damage multiplier before mitigation comes into play. And if you are dual wielding and you can't attack with both weapons when using that weapon skill, is it going to do 100% damage? Is it going to do 75% damage with that one weapon? There's just a lot of unknowns that we just don't really know how that's going to work. I also feel like not using a shield with how limited you are to getting life pool in the game is also, I think not having a shield, you're going to be so squishy, it's not going to be very fun to play. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I'm sure they'll fine tune and balance over time. but even having a shield, like there's not really any shield specific skills. Like there's not like a shield skill tree that you get access to for having a shield equipped. It's like there's certain abilities, like for maces, for example, if you have a shield equipped with the mace weapon type, it gives you access to certain skills. I feel like shields it would be more interesting if they had some of their own abilities that, made you want to use a shield potentially, not just for the defensive properties of block or damage mitigation, whatever. I also feel like a lot of the active defensive abilities in the game, like I don't think anybody really uses active block to, you know, avoid damage. At least I never really did, and even once you get past like very early stages of the game, like dodge rolling almost becomes kind of obsolete with the speed at which damage happens. It's not really something like you can avoid. The only thing it really helps you avoid is like if you're trying to get out of like an expanding AoE type attack, like Fire Blast zone, some sort of like AoE zone damage that's, um, telegraphed to you on the ground with like a red circle. But even then, like I feel like PoE 1 was fine with not having a dodge roll, but having, movement skills like leap slam, etc., because you could utilize those for the same thing to basically move quickly out of an area to try and avoid like a major AoE hit. So the other thing I wanted to look at just briefly, just show you like Steam charts, which it's not a perfect end all be all of who's playing what because there is the launcher, like the client launcher directly through for Path of Exile 1 and PoE 2, but I think it gives you kind of a good sample size to kind of get an idea of how many people are playing what game currently. So we look at PoE 1, and it's fairly late in the day, early in the morning, while I'm recording this because I'm pretty severely jet lagged, so my sleep schedule is pretty bad right now. But we're looking at all time or peak players in the last 24 hours at about 152k, currently 62.5k. And then we look at PoE 2, and not even close. So peak right now about 10,000, 24-hour peak about 22k. So we've got, almost 8 times as many people playing PoE 1 currently versus PoE 2. And we can kind of, granted, a league just started within the last couple days, so that's not too surprising. But if we look at even just the peak players going back to last summer, we're in the you can see as like kind of when a league starts. This, I'm assuming a league probably started right here, and after a month or 2 months, like a lot of the player base kind of drops off, and another league, most likely a league. Well, it might not have been a new league, but I think they did like a minor league update here, brought some players back. We look at PoE 2, and from launch had a lot of players really interested in the game, and then it's just kind of really dropped off pretty hard. Even when the new patch came out, it only brought back about less than half of the players that started. Granted, the last 30 days, like peak players 47k, here 178k. So even if we look at April, May, compare those a little bit. I mean, PoE 2 is clearly the winner there, but you can just kind of see how much fatigue and like interest people are starting to lose in PoE 2, and now that there's a new PoE 1 league, a lot of people have kind of shifted back to PoE 1 just because it's more content, new content, it's fresh, a lot more stuff to do in it. So I'm just starting to question, like, what was the point of Path of Exile 2, really? Because when it started, it was going to be the same game. It was going to just be a different campaign, basically. They were going to roll out these new graphics, completely update all the graphics in PoE 1 to this new PoE 2, and have two campaigns. And then after you did your campaign, you would merge into the same end game. So and then at some point they decided to make it a completely different game, and they just went off on a totally different design direction. And a lot of the design choices, I think, are suboptimal compared to PoE 1, which just, really makes me question, like, what was the point of it? Like, why do you want to split your player base like that? Um, and put all of this effort into developing two separate games for, more or less the same audience. I mean, granted, PoE 2 may have, brought in a lot of new players to, play, and maybe those new players will check out PoE 1. It's hard to say exactly what the thought process was behind it, but I feel like that a lot of resources have been put into PoE 2, and it still feels very, very raw and very, like, early access. Like, not even early access, it almost feels like an alpha. I mean, we don't even have all of the weapons. Like, I get not all the classes being released, but we're missing like half of the weapon types, just the base weapon types, and then that compounds with like the skills. So we're missing like half the weapons, half the skills, more than half the classes, half of the campaign. They've put, like, they put a lot of work into the end game, but even the end game doesn't feel as good as it does in PoE 1. Um, it's been improved, and it's like, I want to play PoE 2 right now. Like, I would like to play PoE 2 and like progress in it, but there's not really any feeling of progression. It just feels like you're, more or less like beating your head against a wall. Like, you're just doing the same thing over and over for the sake of doing the same thing over and over. PoE 1, you feel that sense of progression, you know, constantly. I mean, it's almost like never ending until you've defeated all of the pinnacle bosses on a character. Like, you're still progressing that character, and you could still progress that character further after that if you wish to. I don't really feel that sense in PoE 2. It's just a lot of weird things. It's like you get to the end game and you get to some of these like pinnacle bosses, then you kill them, and then you like put points into that tree on the Atlas passive and make them stronger. And, to me, that's not like a pinnacle boss if there's like 8 different difficulties of that pinnacle boss. It's just kind of a weird way to do it. Like, have a regular version and then maybe have an Uber version or something of that, nature. If you want to have multiple versions of the same boss, don't give me like 8 different difficulty settings for the same boss. It's just not the same. It's not as rewarding. It doesn't feel as good. But those are kind of my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you're playing. Are you playing PoE 1? Are you playing PoE 2? Are you excited about other ARPGs that are coming out, like Titan Quest 2? What are your thoughts on Last Epoch, etc.? Curious to know, guys. Let what you're thinking, what you're playing. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And remember to give them the D.